The world tilted a sort of starter before she took the linen sheets, and she took the linen sheets before she sent the Venmo request. $750. The world tilted deposit on our wedding celebrant with a broken heart emoji where an explanation should have been. I stood in the driveway of our fibro house in Sunshine East in my socks, the phone warm against my palm, watching her wedge the last plastic tub into the back seat of the Suzuki Swift, and the only thought I could land on was 2 hours ago I was worried about the roof. The world tilted scythe of it. 2 hours before that phone buzzed, I'd been sitting at the kitchen table scraping dried grout off my work boots with a putty knife, turning over in my head whether we should get the corrugated iron redone before the wedding in November or leave it till after, when the money wasn't so tight. I'm 30 years old, a carpenter. The world tilted fancy about it. I frame houses, I fix what needs fixing. And for 3 years my life with Chloe had run on a rhythm so steady I'd stopped noticing it. The word you stop noticing the sound of your own ute idling in the driveway. The world tuned in from the lounge room that afternoon walking differently. Not her usual bounce, heel-toe, humming something under her breath. This was slower, deliberate. The word of walk she gets after 4 hours face down in her phone, scrolling herself into a state. She didn't sit next to me on the couch like she always did. The world tilted sideways. She dragged the old milk crate we use as a footstool across the kitchen floor and set it down directly across from me, like she needed the table between us. We need to deconstruct our relational paradigm, Jack, she said. I had the putty knife halfway down my left boot. I stopped. You're what? Though I've been doing some deep somatic processing. Her voice had dropped into that airy, the Wurfel register she uses when she's trying to sell jars of elderberry syrup to strangers at the Sunday markets. Like every word had been rehearsed for a customer who hadn't decided yet whether to buy. The monogamy is a colonial construct, Jack. It's designed to limit our emotional capacity. I'm polyamorous. I need a relationship structure that lets me explore ethical non-monogamy outside. The world tilted sideways. A couple of magpies were going at it on the power line, that warbling carry on they do in the late afternoon. I could hear it clear as anything through the flywire door. The world tilted sideways. I remember that more than I remember what I said next, because for a second or two I genuinely thought she might be having me on. The world tilted sideways. I looked at her face for the tell. The twitch at the corner of her mouth, the thing she can never quite hide when she's setting up a joke. It wasn't there. Her eyes were wide and flat and dead serious. The word, the want to see other blokes. I said, not a question anymore. It's not about seeing people. She leaned forward on the milk crate, elbows on her knees. The war recognized the posture. It was the one she uses when she's about to explain something she's decided I'm too slow to have already worked out myself. It's kitchen table polyamory, Jack. Though we expand our love, no single person can meet every emotional and spiritual need of another human being. It's science. There's a couple I follow up in Byron Bay. Their whole dynamic is so beautiful. The world tilted sideways thing. There's no jealousy, no ownership. Chloe. I set the putty knife down on the newspaper, next to the little pile of dried mud flakes I'd scraped off. The world together 3 years. We've put $3,000 down on the hall in Geelong. The invitations are sitting in boxes in the hallway right now, 6 feet from where you're sitting. You've never said one word about any of this. The world and society conditions us to suppress our authentic selves. She said it fast, like she'd been waiting for me to give her the opening. I only found the vocabulary for it 6 weeks ago. The world listening to this podcast, radical repairing, and it just cracked something open in me, Jack. I need this to grow as a person. And if you love me, the world tilted sideways. Something went very still and very cold in my chest right then. It's a feeling I know from building sites. The half second after a scaffold plank gives way underneath you, before your body's even decided what to do, when everything just goes quiet and clear and you find yourself already reaching for the nearest solid pipe without remembering deciding to. The world tilted side. It was like sitting at my own kitchen table. You're right about one thing, I said, and I made myself say it slow, steady, the way you'd talk to an apprentice who's about to do something with a nail gun that's going to end in a trip to Footscray Hospital. One person can't meet every need a person's got. The world twy. I've got my mates down the footy club. That's why you've got your weaving group. But romantically, intimately, I'm a one-woman bloke, Chloe. That's not something we negotiate. The world is my line in the sand. She stood up off the milk crate so fast it nearly tipped over. That is incredibly rigid, Jack. You are choosing your own insecurity over my happiness. The world tilted sideways. How would you even know you don't like it if you won't try one open weekend? Because I know who I am, mate. I didn't raise my voice. The world raised my voice at Chloe more than twice in 3 years. And I wasn't about to start over this. I don't need to put my hand in a concrete mixer to know it'll take my fingers off. The world tilted sideways. I guess we're done. All the podcast softness dropped out of her voice in one go, like a tap turned off. What was left was loud and sharp, and if I'm honest, the world tilted, frightening in how fast it arrived. I'm not letting your small-mindedness trap me in a box for the rest of my life. She didn't wait for me to answer. The world tilted sideways. She went straight down the hall into our bedroom, and I heard the wardrobe doors bang open, hangers scraping hard along the rail. The world particular rustling sound of linen being stripped off shelves. I sat exactly where I was. I didn't go after her. The world tilted sideways. There didn't seem to be anywhere to go. 20 minutes earlier I'd been a bloke thinking about roof sheets and a spring wedding. The word now I was just a bloke sitting very still at a table with mud flakes on a newspaper, listening to the woman I'd asked to marry me packing herself into a hatchback. The world tilted sideways, which brings me back to the driveway, and the phone buzzing in my hand, and the broken heart sitting there in the payment description like she'd already worked out how the story was going to be told. The world tilted S-boxed her, heaved the last box onto the back seat and slammed the door with her hip. She didn't look at me. She got in, started the Suzuki, and it coughed the way it always does on the third try. The world tilted sideways. I stood on the concrete in my socks with the phone still buzzing faintly against my palm, watching the tail lights swing out of our driveway and down toward the Ballarat Road roundabout. The world tilted sideways. Not sharply, but the way you understand weather coming, that I had no idea yet what any of this was going to cost me. Not the money, though there'd be plenty of that too. The world tilted sideways. But the part where you find out how far a person will go to make you the villain in the story of their own decision. The world tilted sideways. The house behind me was very quiet. Somewhere down the street a possum was already getting into someone's bin, and the magpies had gone off to wherever magpies go once the light starts dropping. The world tilted sideways. I stood there a while longer than I probably needed to, the phone screen dimming and lighting up again every time the buzz came through. $750, $750. The world tilted sideways. She meant to keep asking until I answered. I didn't go back inside straight away. I just stood in the driveway in my socks looking at the empty spot where the Suzuki had been. The world tilted sideways, and thinking that somewhere between the corrugated iron and the milk crate I'd missed something. I just didn't yet know how much. The caterer rang the next morning at 9 on the dot. The world tilted sideways before I'd even had my second coffee. Her name was Denise, and she'd done my sister's wedding 2 years back, so there was a warmth to her voice that made what she had to say worse, somehow. The world tilted sideways. So I've just got you down for a final head count by end of month, Jack. Did you want to lock in the lamb, or shall we go with the barramundi for the main? The world. Chloe was leaning. Barra. The wedding's off, Denise. There was a pause on the line, the kind where you can hear someone recalibrating. Oh love, I'm sorry to hear that. Then, the world tilted sideways, because biz is business even when it's got a person's whole life sitting on the other end of it. Do have to let you know, the deposit's non-refundable past the 90-day mark. The world tilts $1,500. Jack, I'm sorry. I wish I could do something. Yeah, I know the paperwork. Thanks for ringing, Denise. The photographer, a bloke called Marcus who'd done a mate's engagement shoot down at the Werribee Gardens, was shorter about it. $800, gone, and a sort of brisk, no worries, mate. These things happen. That made it clear this was for him, simply Tuesday. The world tilted sideways at the kitchen table after the second call with the same putty knife still lying on the same newspaper from the day before. The world tilted the sum in my head twice because I didn't trust myself to have got it right the first time. $2,300. The whirl in the drain because Chloe had discovered a podcast 6 weeks ago. I took photos of both cancellation emails, cropped them so they were clean and legible. The world till her with a single line underneath. Half of this is VUN 150. Can you transfer when you get a chance? Her reply took 20 minutes. The world tilted sideways. I know because I watched the clock on the microwave the whole time, standing in the kitchen with my phone in my hand like an idiot. The world tilted sideways. Should I pay for your inability to compromise? You're the one who ended the engagement because you couldn't handle my authenticity. I read it 3 times. Then I rang her. The words, 'cause some things you can't do over text without losing your mind, slowly, one word at a time. She picked up on the 4th ring. I could hear wind chimes somewhere behind her. The world tilted sideways. She was outside somewhere, maybe already at the new place. Chloe, you gave me an ultimatum. Either I let you see other blokes or we're done. I chose done. The world tilted sideways. That's not me ending anything you didn't already end. And we both signed the vendor agreements. Both our names are on that contract, mate, not just mine. You care more about bank accounts than human connection, Jack. Her voice had that trembling, wounded pitch to it. The world that used to make me want to fix whatever was wrong before I'd even worked out what it was. It didn't work on me quite the same way this time, and some small. The word of me noticed that and felt sick about noticing it. I had to pay a bond on a studio in Fitzroy. I don't have the money to throw at your spiteful cancellations. The world, figure it out yourself. They're not spiteful, Chloe. They're real bills from real people who did real work booking dates for us. I can't talk about this right now. And she hung up. Just like that, chimes gone. The world tilted sideways. I tall tone in my ear on a Wednesday morning in a kitchen that still smelled faintly of her elderberry syrup from a batch she'd left simmering on the stove 3 days before all of this started. The world tilted. They're holding the phone for a while. I thought about ringing back. I didn't. The world tilted sideways. A different number lit up the screen. Sharon. Chloe's mother. I hadn't spoken to Sharon since Easter when she'd made a comment about my hands over lunch. Rugged, she'd called them. The world tone could have been admiration if you didn't know Sharon. And I felt my stomach tighten before I'd even answered. Jack. No hello. Just my name. The word, a sigh that sounded more tired than angry. I hope you're proud of yourself. Sharon. My daughter came to you trying to communicate something very difficult. The word, you couldn't even sit with it for a day before you threw her out. I closed my eyes. Somewhere in the ceiling above the kitchen, a possum shifted in the roof cavity, a small scrabbling sound. The world tilted. Sweta. She told me she wanted to sleep with other blokes 3 months before our wedding. Sharon. That's what she communicated. It's called ethical non-monogamy, Jack. The world tilted sideways, and it's quite common these days among more educated circles. There was that word again, sitting there in her sentence like a stone she'd been carrying around specifically to drop on me. Your father-in-law and I have had an understanding for 15 years. It requires a level of maturity I clearly overestimated in you. Good for you and Bob. I kept my voice level. The world, something in my chest had gone tight and hot. But I'm not Bob. Sharon, and Chloe's not you. Tell your daughter she owes me $2,300 for the vendors. The next letter she gets is from a small claims registrar, not from me. You would drag her through the courts. Over a few $1,000s. I'd drag her through the courts over a signed contract, same as I would anyone. I paused and then, because I couldn't help myself, the raised a daughter who thinks broken promises come with an emotional exemption. That's not my doing, Sharon, that's yours. She hung up on me too. 2 hang-ups in one day, both from women who seemed absolutely certain I was the one who'd failed some sort of test. The world tilted sideways. I threw myself into work after that. The house had started to feel like it belonged to someone I used to know, and the building site was the one place that didn't. There was a run of townhouses going up in Footscray, 6 of them in a row, and the foreman, a bloke called Robbo who'd known me since my apprentice days, put me on framing without asking any questions. The world tilted sideways, which I was grateful for. 12-hour days. Rain most of that fortnight, the miserable grey Melbourne kind that gets into your boots and stays there, and I didn't mind it. The world tilted sideways, because at the end of a 12-hour day my shoulders ached too much to think about anything except the beer waiting for me at the Sunshine Pub and the bed waiting for me after that. There was on one of those nights, a Thursday, sitting at the bar with Robbo and a couple of the other lads, that Danny, young bloke, maybe 24. The world tilted. His mum out in Albion leaned over and said not unkindly, "You right, Jack, you've gone quiet these last couple weeks. Wedding's off?" I said. The world tilted sideways. There didn't seem any point dressing it up for the blokes I worked with. Robbo, 3 schooners in, put a hand on my shoulder that was heavier than he probably intended. "Chloe." "Nah, mate. You two were solid." "Yeah," I said. "Turns out solid's got an expiry date if you're not paying attention." The world tilted sideways. I didn't say more than that, and they didn't push, and we watched the footy on the pub telly, and I let the noise of it fill up the space where I might otherwise have started thinking too hard. The world tilted sideways, but driving home that night down Ballarat Road with the wipers going, I caught myself doing the thing I'd been trying not to do. Running the whole scene back in my head, the milk crate, the podcast. The world tilted sideways. If you love me, you'll grow with me, trying to find the moment 3 years ago or 3 months ago, where I should have seen it coming. I couldn't find it. That was almost the worst part. The world tilted sideways. It wasn't like there'd been a slow leak I'd ignored. It felt like the roof had just come off in one gust, on a day that had started with grout and a putty knife. The warehouse was too quiet when I got home. I'd noticed it every night since she left. The world tilted sideways, but that Thursday it hit me harder than usual. I walked into the lounge room out of habit and stood there a second too long looking at the corner where her spinning wheel used to sit. The World Ashford thing she'd bought off Gumtree and never quite finished learning to use. There was a clean rectangle in the carpet where it had been, paler than the rest. I didn't cry. The world tilted sideways, just stood there a while, and then I went and had a shower too hot for comfort and went to bed. The world tilted sideways, and lay there listening to a possum thumping around on the roof and thinking that at least the roof itself was still sound. Whatever else in the house had come apart. The worldification came 3 weeks after she'd driven off in the Suzuki. Instagram, the little red icon, a name I still hadn't got around to muting. A photo Chloe at a cafe table somewhere in Brunswick. The world tilted science-posed brick and hanging plants behind her. Her hand wrapped around the hand of a bloke I didn't recognize. Trimmed beard, a velvet jacket the color of a bruised plum. The world kind of outfit that looked like it cost more than my utes last service. The caption sat under the photo in her looping, deliberate handwriting font. Found someone who understands that love has no borders, new beginnings. The world tilted sideways. I looked at it for longer than I meant to. I kept waiting to feel the thing I assumed I was supposed to feel. The jealousy, the rage, the urge to throw the phone across the room. It didn't come. The world tilt instead was a kind of flat, gray tiredness that sat behind my eyes like I hadn't slept in a week, even though I had. I thought about the $2,300 still unpaid. The world tilted sideways. I thought about the clean rectangle in the carpet. I thought with a clarity that surprised me. She found her vocabulary for this 6 weeks before she found the nerve to say it to my face. The world, she's already found a bloke in a velvet jacket to say it to instead. The whirl into the settings on the app, found her profile and hit mute. It should have been satisfying, it wasn't. It just felt like one more small, practical task. The world tilted sideways, the kind you do at the end of a long day, checking the locks, turning off the outside light. Except this one was locking a door on 3 years. The was nobody left to say goodnight to on the other side of it. I put the phone face down on the kitchen table, next to where the putty knife still sat, and I sat there in the quiet a long while. The world tilted sideways, listening to the fridge hum and the wind pick up outside, thinking that I had absolutely no idea, none at all, whether this was the last I'd hear from Chloe, or only the beginning of something worse. The world tilted sideways. It turned out to be neither, or maybe both. 3 weeks after the Instagram photo, on a Tuesday night, my phone rang while I was sitting on the back veranda with a tin of Victoria Bitter. The world tilting frost start to settle in patches on the lawn. Her name came up on the screen, still not muted on the phone side of things, just the app. Jack. Something in her voice had changed the airy. The worst quality was gone. She sounded small, the way she used to sound when she had a bad flu and needed someone to bring her Panadol and sit with her until it passed. "Can we get a coffee?" she said. "The bakery near the station. Tomorrow morning. Just 10 minutes, I promise." I didn't sleep well that night. I lay there working out what I'd say. The world tilted sideways, rehearsing 3 or 4 different versions of a conversation I didn't actually know the shape of yet, and none of them felt right. The world tilted sideways, and I just decided to go and let it be whatever it was going to be. The world tilted sideways. She was already there when I arrived, tucked into the corner table at the bakery, a flat white going cold in front of her that she hadn't touched. She was wearing a coat I didn't recognize. The world tilted sideways, and it looked like it hadn't been washed in a while. There was a faint grayness to the collar. She looked like she hadn't slept properly in a month. "Thanks for coming," she said, not looking up. The world tilted sideways. "What's this about, Chloe? I've got to be on site in Footscray by 8. She wrapped both hands around the cup like it was the middle of winter inside as well as out. Though I made a mistake. I didn't say anything. I just waited. "The Fitzroy place is so loud, Jack. There's a tram line right outside and I can hear every argument the couple upstairs has." The world tilted sideways. She stopped, swallowed. "The one from the photo, he wasn't what I thought he was." I picked up my own coffee and took a sip. "Too hot still." I set it back down. "The world talked a lot about freedom," she said, her voice starting to crack somewhere around the edges. "About how love shouldn't have borders, how ownership was the whole problem with monogamy. The world till weeks ago I had a terrible day at the markets. My table blew over, I lost half a batch of syrup. I was in tears trying to load the van by myself. And I called him. And he told me he didn't have the emotional bandwidth to hold space for my negative energy that night. He was already seeing 2 other girls from his yoga class. It wasn't a family, Jack. The word wasn't kitchen table anything. It was just everyone looking out for themselves and calling it enlightenment. The world tilt as it was. 6 weeks of a podcast and a Byron Bay Instagram account, and underneath all of it, a bloke in a velvet jacket who couldn't be bothered helping her load a van. The world tell thing in my chest that wasn't quite satisfaction and wasn't quite sadness, more like the quiet, the wormless relief of finally getting a straight answer to a question you'd stopped expecting one for. "I miss the house," she said, and now the tears were properly falling. The world tilted sideways, dropping onto the back of her hand where it rested on the table. "I miss the quiet. I miss knowing someone's actually there when the lights go out and nobody's texting me from 3 other places. We try couples therapy. We don't have to do the other thing. I can do monogamy, Jack. I can force myself to do it for us." The world tilted sideways. I looked at her for a long moment. The bakery was filling up around us, the smell of proving dough and burnt coffee, someone's toddler grizzling 2 tables over. I thought about the milk crate. I thought about the $1,500 to Denise and the $800 to Marcus, still unpaid. The world tilted spreadsheet I'd started keeping on my laptop because Sharon had made it clear nobody in that family intended to settle up on their own. I thought about the clean pale rectangle in the lounge room carpet and how I'd stopped noticing it most days now, the way you stop noticing a scar. And I realized, the world tilted sideways, looking at her across that little table, that I didn't see the woman I'd wanted to grow old with anymore. The world tilted sideways. I just saw someone who'd burnt her own house down because she liked the look of the sparks on a 5-inch screen. and was cold now that the fire had gone out. The wanted back inside the one house that hadn't caught. The world, force yourself to be something you aren't, Chloe, I said, and I kept my voice soft, because there wasn't any anger left in me to put behind it. That part at least. The world tilted sideways, had burned off somewhere in the last 6 weeks of framing houses in the rain. And I'm not going to spend the next 40 years wondering if another podcast's going to talk you round again. The world tilted sideways. You told me I wasn't enough for you. Those words don't go back in the box just because the bloke who was supposed to be enough for you turned out not to be. But I love you, she said. The world tilted sideways, that it came loud enough that the couple at the next table glanced over. I stood up. I pulled a $5 note out of my wallet and set it down next to my coffee, still mostly full. Still too hot to have finished. I loved you too, mate, I said. That's why I let you go. The world tilted sideways. I walked out into the cold morning air, the kind that gets under your collar in July, and zipped my high-vis jacket up to the throat before I'd even reached the ute. The world tilvers seat a minute without starting the engine. The dash was dusty. When I reached over to grab a rag out of the glove box, I found tangled up with the service manual and a handful of loose screws, a linen scrunchie, pale oatmeal color. The world tilted sideways. The sort of thing Chloe used to leave in every pocket and cup holder and coat sleeve in the house, so many of them that I'd stopped picking them up months ago, just left them wherever they landed. The world tilted slipped in there sometime last winter and been forgotten by both of us. I didn't throw it out the window. I got out of the ute. The world the 15 meters over to the wheelie bin by the station entrance, lifted the lid and dropped it in. It made almost no sound at all, landing on top of someone's flattened coffee cup. The world, it's been 3 months now since that morning at the bakery. The house in Sunshine East is still a bit too quiet some nights. I've got used to it mostly. Every so often I'll walk into the lounge room out of habit and register, for half a second, that the corner where her spinning wheel used to sit is just carpet again, ordinary and unremarkable. The pale patch finally starting to fade back into the rest of it. I'm still out roughly $2,000 on deposits nobody's ever paid me back. Sharon sent one terse email in August offering $400 as a gesture of goodwill, and I banked it without replying. The world tilted sideways. Allers is $400, whatever spirit it turns up in. The roof got done in September. New corrugated iron, no more drips onto the hallway carpet when it rains. The 6 townhouses in Footscray went up straight and true, every stud plumb. The world tilted sideways where it should be. Because that's the one part of my life these last few months that nobody's had the chance to talk me out of trusting. The house is quieter than it used to be. The world tilted sideways. Quiet, the same thing as empty. I've been learning the difference slowly, the way you learn any trade, by doing it until your hands stop shaking. The worldies from the catering mob rang me again in October, asking if I'd heard anyone was after a good venue date in Geelong that had come free. She still had me down as a contact, she said. The world tilted sideways. I told her I didn't, but thanks for thinking of me. I hung up and stood in the kitchen a while, and what I felt was nothing much at all, which itself felt like something worth noticing. The Werbo still asks after me most Thursdays at the pub, though he's stopped doing it carefully. He just asks the way you'd ask anyone. You right, mate? And I say yeah and mean it. The word watch the footy, same as always. Sometimes I reach into the glove box for a fuse or the Rego papers and my hand brushes the spot where the scrunchie used to sit. It's gone? The world till course. It's been in a bin outside Sunshine Station since July. But for 3 years those linen scrunchies were in every pocket, every cup holder, every coat sleeve in the house. The world till Tuzuki coughed on the 3rd try every morning, and the spinning wheel sat in its corner collecting dust, and a life rearranges itself around those gaps whether you ask it to or not. The corrugated iron catches the afternoon light differently to the old roof, brighter, less rust in it. The drive home from Footscray, some evenings I look up at it before I've even got the ute into the driveway, checking it's still there, still doing what it's meant to do. It always is. The world tilted sideways now. When I turn my key in the front door, I stand in the hallway a second before I switch the light on, and I know exactly who's inside and exactly who isn't. Then the house doesn't leak anymore.